Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we are taking a look at the Paladin build for the Wrathstone DLC. This is a Templar tank, again. This is also a... And, you know, I'm going to say this now. I'm getting a little annoyed when people say that this build won't work or this build won't work. I'm gonna be very clear on something. How do you know something doesn't work if you don't play it? So before you go saying something doesn't work, play it first, find out for yourself. And we're gonna leave it at that. Moving on though. So today I decided to do the Paladin tank. This is a build I released in the past. This one has been updated to be more of an in-game build with some adjustments because of the gear sets that I chose for this build. And it might seem a little odd, the gear sets. I know a lot of people have been looking at a lot of my builds and going, oh, well, you know, this set. Please understand, a build is just a template. It is just an idea. It is not a set in stone. You have to follow it 100%. This just gives you some idea of how gear works with certain builds, and you can see for yourselves and then decide if this is something you would like to play. So, let's get into it. This time I chose to be an Argonian Templar tank. Argonians are still very powerful tanks, even though a lot of people have been saying a lot of negative stuff about Argonians this update. They are still very powerful Templar tanks. They're still powerful tanks, period. They're very powerful in PvP, PvE, doesn't matter. Excuse me. Didn't mean to sneeze during the video. I held it though. So, but it is they are very powerful. Oh my god. Thought I felt another one coming on. Alright, let's go ahead and get on through with this. So, as you can see, our max magic is 20k. Max health is coming in at 38k, which isn't bad. Not quite as good as the Imperial, but still pretty good. And we have a 22k max stamina. Magic recovery is coming in at 1267. Stam recovery is coming in at 585. We're not so worried about stam recovery with the Templar too much. They're pretty self-sustainable as is, but being an Argonian with this particular build does help because of their potion passive. It makes it really easy to sustain. For some reason on tanks. On other things like DPS and things like that, their potion passive is good, but it's not as good as it is on tanks for some odd reason. Going down here, you can see our spell resist is coming in at 24 and physical is 21. Now, remember, we are not fully buffed yet. Let's go ahead and do that. Now you guys will see we come in at 32,000 spell with a 29k physical. When our monster set procs, we will be over resistance cap on spell. Physical resist, we will be right at 33k, just about. It's pretty scary, but it works out really well. Moving on, we are using Ebon Armory. We do have the Andronach Mundus Stone for the extra mag recovery. And we do have minor Aegis because of one of the gear sets. And I'll go over why we're running this gear set and why minor Aegis is actually really good. Next up, we are using Tri-Stat Food. Now, this is another expert build, guys. This is another in-game build. So you can use this in trials, in dungeons, in overland, anywhere you want. It's not super powerful at killing mobs on its own, not gonna lie. But it is really powerful at being group dynamic play. Alright, let's go into the gear. Like I said, we are using the Tri-Stat Food, longfin pasty with melon sauce. You can use any purple food that's CP 150 that gives you max health, magic, and stamina. There are other foods you can use, but this is the one I prefer to use on most of my tanks at max level. We are using tripods. The live ones are better than the Crown Store ones. Unfortunately, I haven't crafted enough of these on the PTS to give myself, to spread them out. So, because I haven't been playing PTS, I've been testing on PTS, so, or just building on PTS and testing stuff. Alright, moving on though. Looking at our monster set. We are using Lord Warden with this. Again, this is a template. You do not have to use Lord Warden. You can use Bloodspawn if you want, if you feel like that's going to give you more ulti gen, that kind of stuff. You will still be over resistance cap. It doesn't matter. With either one of these, you will still go over resistance cap. But Lord Warden, I like it because it does give you the 1-piece spell and physical resist, and then the 2-piece is really good. When you take damage, you have a 50% chance to summon a Shadow Orb for 10 seconds that increases physical and spell resistance for you and up to you and your allies within 8 meters. For 3,870, this effect can occur once every 10 seconds. You mainly wear this set for your allies, not just for yourself, but your allies. It does play with, well with you, but again, it's better for your allies. The next set we are running is Ebon. Ebon is a really good set for most tanks at in-game. You do not have to wear this set, but it is a set that most tanks will wear. It gives 2 things of max health in the 2 and 3 piece. The 4 piece is healing taken, the 5 pieces increases max health by 1,118 for you and up to 11 group members within 28 meters of you. Moving on to the final set. This is where things are going to get a little questioned. But I have tested this set in the past, and it does work really well. But you have to be willing to give up another set to put this in its place. And that is the Lunar Bastion set. This is a set that drops in Mauve Lorcage. It is a trial set. And as you can see, the 2-piece is healing taken. The 3-piece offers minor Aegis. And it says, gain minor Aegis at all times, reducing damage taken from dungeon, trial, and arena monsters by 5%. Now, I'm going to be very clear with this, so it's very understandable. Any minor Aegis gear, anything that gives you minor Aegis, major Aegis, this is not considered damage reduction. This is its own damage reduction thing that gets applied to any damage you take. It doesn't matter what it is. Any damage, even if you have a shield up, will be reduced by 5%. If you have there's another set that gives major Aegis when you activate a ultimate ability to you and 2 other members. That set gives you 20% damage mitigation. It is literally like 20% off. It's a really powerful... Aegis is a very powerful set to have. Anything with minor Aegis. This is why healer sets and tank sets have it. Is so that it reduces the damage they take. But the 4-piece adds more max health. And then the 5-piece. When you activate a synergy, you create a lunar blessing underneath you for 10 seconds. This blessing grants a damage shield every 2 seconds that absorbs 2,782 damage for you and your allies within 8 meters. Now this is where things get questioned. It's a small shield, but it's every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. So you get 5 shields placed upon you and your allies within 8 meters, as large as the Shadow Orb. That reduces any incoming damage by 2,782. This is any damage. Doesn't matter who's taking it. Anyone that's in that 8-meter radius is going to have 2,782 damage removed. On this particular setup, DKs and Templars, it is a very powerful set. Regardless of what many people say, it is a... If you are starting trials and you are getting into doing trials and you want to get progressive with trials to where you can do them on a considerably better level, this is a good set to use to help your group become understanding of mechanics, because it does give them a small lifeline With a DK, it's a little bit more powerful of a lifeline because DKs can give shields to anyone around them in their group. So they can do those shields along with these shields, and it really stacks them really well. You get about a 6k, 7k shield between the two. Depending. Most of the time it's like a 5.5, 6k shield. So moving on though, now to the enchants and the traits that we are using on our gear. On our monster set, helm, chest, and legs, we are running infused with tri-stats. On the smaller pieces, we are running sturdy. You can run all sturdy if you want to get that lower block cost reduction, but in most cases it's not necessary, except for certain trials where it will be more important, like tanking the axes or something. You might want to get a little bit more sturdy pieces, but we are also running a sturdy shield with the tri-stat glyph. On the smaller pieces, we are running healthy enchants. This will give us more max health, and then the reason we run the tri-stats here is to give us more max stats. So we get more stamina, more magicka, along with max health. On our jewelry, we are running 2 tri-rune rings. This is going to give us more max stats. On top of that, the rings are running shield play enchants. This reduces block cost and bashing costs. And then on our necklace, we are running a magic recovery. Templars don't get an easy way to sustain magicka, so building for magic recovery is really important because a lot of their abilities is magic based, so you want to have a good recovery. Right, moving on to the shield again, or sword and shield. We are running a sturdy shield, like I said. We are running a decisive sword with an absorbed stamina. This is just to help us sustain better when we're on our front bar. You do not have to use this. You can use any enchant you want here and any trait you want here that works better for you as a player. I find this just to be better because decisive gives you more ultimate. We're not using the Bloodspawn helmet, and we aren't a Nord, so we're not getting extra ultimate. This just helps us stack ultimate better. Moving on to the staff now. On the back bar, we are running a infused staff with a Crusher enchant because in Wrathstone, one-handed enchants are cut in half in value in what they do. So two-handed weapons like bows, staves, two-handed swords still maintain the full enchant power. That's why we use a Crusher on an ice staff back bar. And the reason why we use an ice staff on tank builds is because, one, with their passive, they get extra resistances. With the CP and their passives, they get extra resistances. On top of that, you can block with them, and it will cost magicka instead of stamina. So you can set up your skills how you want, but this is really good because you can trade between the two, magicka or stamina. Now, when you do swap bars, you do lose some resistance, but it's not a whole lot. You only lose what the shield offers, the 1720. So when you swap bars, you lose 1720 resistance. Sorry for the cough, guys. Trying to get over whatever it is I picked up. and it did get worse because of the bad weather we just got. Which I'm still amazed by. We got 18 inches of snow. In total. So it was 16 or 15 inches max, but total 18 inches over the full time, but some of it melted off in that time frame. Let's go ahead and move on though to our skills. Alright, starting with our class passives. Again, I'm going to do this one more time. This will be the last time I explain this. Take all your class passives. It's important because you never know if you're going to like go out in the world and play by yourself, if you're going to play in a group, if you're going to be playing dungeons or whatever. You want to be able to have a good mix of tools available to you. So taking all your class passives can give you those tools necessary to switch on the fly skills in between content, so you have access to other skills. And then you can take advantage of the passives your class has. So always make sure to take all your passives, even if you don't use those skills, because you never know if you will or not. Moving on to weapon skills. One-handed sword and board, you want to take all the passives, destruction staff, all the passives, including tri-focus. I know a lot of people say don't take this because it makes the frost staff just give you blocking with the with magic instead of stamina. The reason you want this is so you have a ranged taunt. This will give you a ranged taunt, plus it gives you a small shield, which does help mitigate damage, by the way. So, just getting that out of the way. Moving on to armor passives. Light armor passives. You want the top 3. Medium armor, top 2, bottom 1. Heavy armor, take all of them. Moving on. You can be a vampire with this. Not gonna lie, it does work out pretty well. Not my forte or taste, personally. I don't like taking extra damage from fire. And the only race that really can play a vampire tank really well is a dark elf, and unfortunately I'm not a dark elf, I'm an Argonian, so doesn't work out too well, but it still helps. I always take the soul magic, soul summons, and soul lock. That's just preference to me. Moving on to the Fighters Guild, you want to make sure that you take Banish the Wicked. This will generate 9 ultimate whenever you kill an undead Daedra or werewolf. So even if you get as long as you get the final hit on an enemy that is undead, Daedra, or werewolf, you can still generate 9 ultimate. This is really important. In most trials and most dungeons, I will say more dungeons than trials, you will be fighting undead, Daedra, or werewolves. For the most part. So, alright, moving on. Mage's Guild. Persuasive Will. Fighters Guild, of course, also take Intimidating Presence. This is just for questing purposes. Psijic Order, if you take Deep Thoughts as one of the skills to help you retain resources, or to manage your resources, take Deep Thoughts, and make sure you get Concentrated Barrier and Deliberation. These are the two you're going to want to get. This is going to give you a 5,800 shield if you run my CP. This is going to give you major protection while this is active, reducing your incoming damage by 30%. So it does help in mitigating damage while you have this active, and this will help you sustain. So, Undaunted. Inner Rage, if you want to have a ranged hunt, you can take Inner Rage on the back bar, but I suggest not really needing it because of the fact that you do have a ranged hunt with the Ice Staff. I know Ice Staff has a longer fire time, but it costs you no resources to taunt. So, next up, we have Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. You want to make sure you get these, especially if you're wearing a 5-1-1 setup. 5-1-1 will give you 6% in your max stats, and then the Undaunted Command will give you resources back whenever you use a synergy. It's not a lot, but it can help out. Moving on to the Alliance stuff. Varies here. Make sure, though, if you do take Reviving Barrier on the front bar as your skill, so that way you can get more magical recovery, that you do get this magic aid. Moving on to Argonian passes. Make sure you get all the racial passives for the race. Doesn't matter what you're playing, always get the racial passives. Alchemy, medicinal use, and provisioning. Gourmand and Connoisseur. Very important. Alright, now going over the skills. Starting with the skill on the first skill on the front bar, we are using Pierce Armor. We have this here for the damage, the taunt, because this is our primary taunt, and the Major Fracture, Major Breach that this applies to enemies. Now remember, you can only taunt one enemy at a time with Sword and Board, and you can only apply Major Fracture to one enemy at a time. You can apply it to multiple targets, but you have to taunt each one. That means you have to use Pierce Armor on each one. So, it's interesting, but it works. Next up, we have Heroic Slash. We have this here for the minor main. We also have it here for the damage and the movement speed reduction. but we have it mainly here for the minor heroism to generate ultimate. Moving on, we have Blazing Shield. You can use Radiant Shield, guys. I just prefer Blazing Shield, personally. Radiant Shield does the same thing as this, except it gives you more health on your shield, depending on how many enemies are near you. It doesn't do as much damage as this shield to enemies around you when it explodes, when it ends. And that's why I like this shield. So this will give you a shield for 34% of your max health for 6 seconds. Each enemy increases the shield strength by 4% when the shield is activated. So if it's one enemy, you will go to 38% of your max health. If there is 2 enemies, you go to 42%, and so on and so forth. When the shield expires, it explodes outward, dealing 34% of the damage it absorbed to nearby enemies, and it is only 34%. So it will do roughly about anywhere between 4 to 5k damage when this explodes. And that's if it crits. If it doesn't crit, it's about 3 to 3.5. But you can also get the class passive to activate, which is called Burning Light, which also deals damage, and it can also crit. It has a 25% chance of happening, and it will deal either physical or magic damage, whichever's higher. And this effect can occur once every 0.5 seconds. So it will pretty much be going off a lot, because every time your shield gets knocked off, it'll fire off. Almost every time. On top of this, you also get the Spear Wall passive, which whenever you activate an Aedric Spear ability, you gain minor protection for 3 seconds, reducing damage taken by 8%. This does apply to your shields as well. For some reason, the 8% applies to your shields as well. So for 3 seconds that your shield is active, you are actually taking 8% less damage on them. So, and I don't know why it works that way, it just does. Also, when you have minor Aegis, it also reduces even more damage, so. Alright, moving on. Resolving Vigor. Now, this is a questionable ability. I'll admit that. A lot of people say, I don't get why you're using it. It's not very effective. It costs stamina. Yada, yada, yada. The reason I use this ability is because it offers me a heal over time, but it also offers support to my allies. It's a very small amount of support, but when you have somebody like firing off healing springs and this is going off, they're getting twice the amount of heals almost, which keeps them in survivability better. So that's why I like to use it. And it does have a 10-meter radius. So next up, we are using Absorb Magic here. This is mainly here for while you have a shield equipped and this ability slotted, the amount of damage you can block is increased by 8% along with the 20%. So you get a 28% block cost reduction, or blocking damage capability. And then your cost is also reduced by 8%. So this is why we use this ability. It's mainly for that. The other thing that's nice is when you activate this ability, you bolster your defenses, absorbing up to 22,492 damage from the next spell projectile cast at you, and healing you for 17% of your max health. By the way, the reason why they have 17% compared to other races, Argonians get 6% more healing done. It will show in the it will show in that. So it's a very it's not a super powerful ability, but it's a very helpful ability, especially in AA, MAW, SO, and CR. It's a very good ability to have. Next ability we have is Reviving Barrier, and again, like I said, we have this for the passive magic recovery, but it's also an oh crap button. If your group is taking a lot of damage in a fight, you can activate this, and it will apply to every member within a 12-meter radius of you. And it will give them a 22k damage shield, plus it will heal them for 16,548 over 30 seconds. This is really good when you're running Lunar Bastion. You activate a synergy, you activate this, boom. There's a like a 27k shield you just put on somebody. It's, or 25k shield, almost 26k. It's really good. Excuse me again for the cough. Moving on to the back bar, this is where things get questioned again. Why don't you have a taunt? Guys, I have a taunt. I'm using an ice staff. It has its own taunt built into it on heavy attacks. So I don't use a taunt on the back bar, but if you do want a taunt, you can use the Undaunted's Inner Rage on the back bar. You have to do some swapping out of abilities, but you can use it. Starting with the first ability, though, we do have Silver Leash. This is an ability to pull enemies to you. Remember, this costs stamina, and on top of that, it is a minor CC. It does apply a minor movement speed reduction of 40% for 4 seconds. So, it's pretty nice. It does deal damage, but that's not the main part. It's to get enemies into you so you can put them in AoE damage areas and stuff like that. Next ability we have on our bar, this is a CC. It is a very powerful CC if it works. It doesn't work all the time, but when it does, it is a very powerful CC, and that is Blockade of Frost. And another reason why I like to use an ice staff now versus other things. Like, I've tried with bow. Bow's nice because you can apply Crusher really well with bow. You can apply Crusher with this. Before anyone says, well, Crusher will only apply to the, one target. One target every second. So it can apply to multiple targets, but most of the time it only applies to one, maybe two, depending on how many are in this location. But when you're fighting a boss, you're not worried about applying to other targets. You're worried about killing that boss. So you will apply this to the boss and keep it applied to the boss. That's the main reason why we use this, is to keep Crusher applied 100% on bosses. Alright, next ability we have is Luminous Shards, and this is just to help your group out with resources because it does have a synergy attached to it. When you activate this and you throw this out, this will throw out a shard with a range, a 10-meter range around it, and anyone can run up to this and activate the synergy besides the caster themselves. So as a tank, if you're tanking and somebody says, I need resources, you can just toss this out while you're on the boss. Not only will it do damage to the boss, but it will also allow somebody to synergize off of it to get resources. It's just a nice way to help out your group. And it will give them both resources. So it'll give them both Magicka and Stamina, whichever's higher, they will get more of, but they will still get other resources as well. Like a Magicka person might have just dodged roll, blocked an attack, and then is running a little low on Magicka. So you throw them a shard, they get that, they get Magicka, and they get Stamina back. It works in that category really well. For Stamina DPS, not so much. But it will give one of two resources at almost 4k, or at 4k, and then the other one at 2k. The next ability we have is another synergy called Ritual of Retribution. Now, you can use Extended Ritual, but I like Ritual of Retribution because it does apply damage over time. I know a lot of people will complain about that, but you know what? Everyone has their preferences. I prefer this. In most cases, you will not have more than 2 effects applied to you, so this works out really well. First off, it removes 2 negative effects from the caster in the area. So if you cast it, as long as you're still standing in the circle, you get 2 negative effects removed from you immediately. On top of that, for 12 seconds, and every 2 seconds, you will heal for X amount of damage. This will continue to happen. The next ability we have is the Light also deals damage to the enemies every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. Anyone can come up and use the synergy, and it will purify them of all negative effects and heal them for 3,548 damage on this particular race. So it's not a bad skill. it's a very good skill because it gives you a way to cleanse yourself of negative effects, but it also can cleanse your allies. Next ability we have is Restoring Focus. This is here to give us Major Ward, Major Resolve, increasing spell and physical resist by 5,280. It also grants stamina recovery of 240 every second that the circle is active. Now this circle lasts for 20 seconds, so you will get 240 stamina every second, and you do not have to be standing in the circle, you just have to cast this and you will get that for 20 seconds, the stamina recovery and the resistance. While you stand in the rune though, you will get 50% more spell and physical resistance. So this is why with the Templar tank you want to cast this and stay in it as much as possible, because as soon as you go out of it, you'll see your resistances go down. As soon as you step back in, they go back up. So you want to stay in this as much as possible to keep your resistances at that higher level. Last ability we have is Aggressive Warhorn. We have this here because it gives us and our allies increase max stats of Magicka and Stamina by 10% for 30 seconds. You and your allies also gain Major Force, increasing critical damage by 15% for 9 seconds. Now, in most cases, you will be firing this in succession to other group members. So the other tank that's in your trial, the 2 healers, all 4 of you will be firing this ability in succession to keep that Major Force going. But remember, this is a situational skill. Now, this is one you want to keep active as much as possible, but you also want to use it at certain situations in an encounter so you can use it on what we call burn phases. And that's usually in between like the 75% mark, the 50% mark, 25% mark, where it might activate other abilities, so you can keep your group applied with this stuff when those factors happen. So like, let's say you know at 75% the boss is going to do some AoE thing to the area. You wait until after that to where your group can get close enough, then you activate it so you can use it from 75 to 50. It's a matter of timing, and once you're in a good organized group, it just becomes second nature on when to time your warhorns. So, all right, moving on now to CP, and yes, guys, this uses the standard CP setup of all my builds. So starting with the Ironclad, we do have 66 in Ironclad. This reduces damage taken from direct damage attacks by 22%. Moving on to the next tree, we have 31 into Thick Skin. This reduces damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. And then we have 56 into Hardy, reducing damage taken from physical poison disease damage by 12%. And then 56 into Elemental Defender. This reduces Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 12%. Now, I will explain this again. Thick-Skinned and Ironclad both stack with Hardy and Elemental Defender. The reason why I put these up so high is this way you get a greater amount of damage reduction across the board. Then these things stack with this, giving you even more damage reduction depending on the type of damage you're taking. Alright, Bulwark. This is something that all tanks need anyways, but this increases your resistances when you have a shield or frost staff equipped by 1500. This is where that extra resistance is coming from on the ice staff, guys. So, moving on, we have 40 into Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. You do not have to use this if you don't want to. I use it because Templars get extra shield strength based on how much points you put in here. 40 will give you exactly 4% more on your shield strength. So that's why I like to use it. And it's mainly on Templars that I will use Bastion. Quick Recovery. We have 19 points here. This increases your healing received by 5%. And then we have 2 into Heavy Armor Focus. This increases your physical resistance by 209. With Templars and DKs, I usually take these 2 points and put it here, because their spell physical resist is lower than their spell resist, because the class comes equipped with a passive that increases spell resistance. So make sure you put these 2 points here. It really helps out, kind of equalizing their stuff. And if you wanted to, you could even put more points in here. Moving on to the green tree. 56 in the Warlord. This reduces break free cost by 20%, which saves us stamina. We have 16 into bashing focus. Now, you don't have to put 16 points into here. You can put it into sprinter. I prefer it in here, mainly because I do a lot of bashing as a tank. I like to interrupt enemies. If I see them doing something that I can interrupt them, I will automatically, intentionally, like instinctually bash them. So, with the 2 bash cost reductions, shield play enchants on our jewelry, and this, we actually reduce our bashing cost by a whole lot. I think it goes down to like 600 points or something, or 700 points. It's pretty nice. Moving on to the middle tree, and this again is my preference. You don't have to follow this. I have 43 in the Mooncalf. This increases stamina recovery by 10%. I have 43 in Arcanus. This increases mag recovery by 10%, and then I have 43 in the Tenacity. This increases stamina and magic return of fully charged heavy attacks by 10%. So, Ice Staff gives stamina, magic back. Sword and Board gives stamina back. So anytime I heavy attack, I get 10% more. The reason I build for 10% in here and 10% in here is mainly because of the potion passive. When I use a potion, this goes to 688 and this goes to 1369. When you heavy attack with a sword and shield, so you guys can see, my recovery rate is every 2 seconds. So if you time your attack to where your recovery rate and your heavy attack come in almost at the same time, not only will you get the almost 3k stamina back, you'll get the absorbed stamina for 177, you'll get the 240 stamina, and you'll get your return of 688. You end up getting about 4k stamina back with the heavy attack with sword and shield. So that's why I like to use, that's why I like to have a high stamina recovery, or a decent stamina recovery. Usually around 600, 700 or higher. Moving on, we have 13 into Tumbling. This reduces your dodge roll cost by 6%. We are wearing 1 piece of medium armor, so we actually have a 10% reduced dodge roll cost. So, it's pretty nice. It's not super effective, but it is nice. The next ability next one we have is Shadow Ward. We have 56 points in here. This is going to reduce our block cost by an extra 20%. With the 36 we already get, that's a 56% reduced cost. With all the sturdy pieces is another 20%. That's a 76% reduced cost. And then with the extra 8%, we go to 84% reduced cost in blocking. Then you take into account the 2 shield play enchants. We lose, right off the bat, we lose about 400 in our cost for blocking. And then we get the percentages removed. So we actually, it's really cheap. It's not too bad. Moving on over here, we have 43 in a Blessed. This increases our healing done by 10%. Since we are using Vigor, and another heal, the Ritual Retribution. This allows us to heal for a little bit more. But remember, we're also Argonians, so that 6%, or that 10% becomes 6% more. So we actually get 16%, and then we get an additional 8% for one of our passives. When we place our Ritual of Retribution, we actually go to like a 24% or 22%, 24%, somewhere in there. Healing done. So we actually get a lot of healing done with being an Argonian. We can also critical heal, which is nice. So if we crit heal, we can heal for 20% more. And our Ritual Retribution can also deal 20% more magic damage when it crits. Actually, it's 30%, but we'll get to that some other time. It's not necessary, but I still like having this for the critical healing mostly. Moving on. In the middle tree here, we have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert. This increases our light and heavy attack damage with Sword and Board by 10%. It's not necessary, but it helps to unlock Reposit, which we'll get to in a sec. And then 40 into Mastered Arms. This increases our direct damage done with our Sword and Board light attacks, heavy attacks, bashing are all direct damage, so we can increase it by 16%. On top of that, we also get this Reposit, which whenever we block an attack, we have a 15% chance to deal physical damage back to the enemy once every 5 seconds. It's not a lot of damage, but it can. I have killed enemies with this. I've even killed people in PvP with this. So, it's kind of funny. Moving on over here to the final tree, we have 43 into Mighty. This increases physical poison disease damage by 10%. We have 23 into Thaumaturge. This increases damage done with damage over time effects by 10%. Mainly our Ice Staff and our Ritual Retribution. I don't know if Ritual Retribution is affected by this, but I know Ice Staff is. This just increases the damage by a little bit. And you can take this 23 points if you wanted to, and some of these points, doesn't matter. If you want to take this up to 43, you could take out of here and drop this to 40, so you can get this up to 43. This does work out a little bit better on increasing your damage. But I like using this to increase the damage of the wall of elements mainly. We also get 40 in Precise Strikes. This increases our Vigor heal by 16%. It's pretty nice. I like it. And then we have 9 into Piercing. This has increased our physical penetration by 907. This just increases our physical damage. It really helps out when you're solo playing, because you are using your sword and board a lot more to deal damage, so it really helps out. And that is it for the CP, guys, and that is it for the Paladin build coming to you guys today for the Wrathstone DLC. Wrathstone DLC does launch next week on Monday, the 25th, so anyone playing on PC will be able to set this build up and play it if they want, or any of the other builds I've released so far. Next week, I will be releasing other tank builds based on Templar. I'm going to be doing some basic builds for Templar, and a couple other advanced builds, and then we will start on to another class for tanking. Most likely probably moving on to DK, since it's the next tank that I want to focus on, and then I will do Wardens, then I will do Nightblades, and then I will do Sorcerers. And I'm going to try and release them, release every class builds every week. So this way, over the next 5 weeks, I will be doing nothing but tank builds. I would do them all in one day, but honestly, guys, I'm getting not a little burned, but I do enjoy playing the game too, and releasing one video a day allows me to enjoy the game a little bit more. No offense. So, and I will be bringing videos of gameplay soon of Templar tanks in Trials, if I can. So, just letting you know. But that's pretty much it for the build, guys. I hope you guys like it. If you do, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.